The knife went in, and Lucas didn't scream. He was 6 years old, barefoot, starving, and he didn't let go of Sophie's hand. Blood poured down his arm, soaking into the pavement, but his fingers stayed locked around hers. The kidnapper kicked him in the ribs. Something cracked. Still, he held on. "Run!" he choked out, shoving her toward the door. He collapsed in a pool of his own blood, and the last thing he saw was Sophie's face. What he didn't know was that her father commanded 195 Hell's Angels, and by dawn, every single one of them would come for the boy who bled for their princess. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and follow my story to the end. Comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has traveled. Mrs. Crawford dropped the plate. It shattered against the kitchen floor, ceramic pieces scattering everywhere. But she didn't move. She just stood there, staring through the back window of her diner, her hands still frozen in midair where the plate had been. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God, oh my God." Her legs gave out. She grabbed the counter, knocked over a coffee pot, barely noticed the hot liquid splashing across her apron. Outside, in the parking lot behind Crawford's Corner Diner, a 6-year-old boy was bleeding on the pavement, and he was still holding on to Sophie Hartwell with both hands. 3 hours earlier, Lucas had been counting bottle caps. It was a stupid thing, counting bottle caps. He knew that. But when you were 6 years old and had nothing else, you found things to count, things to collect, things to make you feel like you existed. 39 bottle caps. That was how many he had now. He kept them in a rusty tin box behind the dumpster at Crawford's Corner Diner, right next to his sleeping spot. The box had a picture of Christmas cookies on the lid, faded and scratched, but Lucas liked it. It reminded him of something, though he couldn't remember what anymore. His mother, maybe, before she got sick, before everything went dark. "Lucas!" The voice cut through his thoughts like sunshine through storm clouds. He looked up, and there she was, Sophie Hartwell, 4 years old, standing at the edge of the parking lot with her hands on her hips like she owned the whole world. "Lucas, what are you doing?" He quickly shoved the bottle cap into his pocket. "Nothing." "That's not nothing. I saw you. You were looking at something." She walked toward him, her pink sneakers crunching on the gravel. Lucas noticed she had a new scrape on her knee. She was always getting scrapes, always running, always climbing, always falling down and getting back up again. "It's just a bottle cap," he mumbled. "Can I see?" He hesitated. Then slowly he pulled it out. It was a Pepsi cap, the blue paint mostly worn off but still shiny in the center. Sophie took it from his palm and examined it like it was a precious gemstone. "It's beautiful," she said. Lucas felt something warm spread through his chest. It was a strange feeling. He wasn't used to it. "You can have it," he said, "if you want." Sophie's eyes went wide. "Really?" "Yeah, I got lots of them." She clutched the bottle cap to her chest. "I'm going to keep it forever. I'm going to put it in my special box with my butterfly." The butterfly. Lucas remembered the paper butterfly Sophie had made and given him 2 weeks ago. He still had it folded carefully inside his jacket pocket. He'd never told her that he slept with it every night, holding it in his fist like a prayer. "Your mom's going to be looking for you," Lucas said. "She's busy. She's always busy. She's working hard for you." Sophie scrunched up her face. "I know, but I don't like being alone." "You're not alone," Lucas said quietly. "I'm here." Sophie smiled at him. A real smile, the kind that made her whole face light up. "Yeah," she said, "you're always here." The thing about being invisible was that people told you things without meaning to. They talked in front of you like you weren't there. They argued, whispered secrets, made plans, all while looking right through you like you were made of glass. Lucas had learned more about the world from being invisible than most kids learned in school. He knew that Mr. Dawson from the hardware store was cheating on his wife with the lady from the bank. He knew that the teenagers who hung out behind the gas station were selling more than just cigarettes. He knew that Sheriff Briggs sometimes drank on duty, and that Mrs. Chen's son had gotten kicked out of college but was too ashamed to tell her. And he knew that a white van had been circling the block for 4 days. Same van, same time, same route. He'd noticed it on Monday. Tuesday it came back. Wednesday, it slowed down when it passed the diner. Today was Thursday. Lucas watched the van from his spot behind the dumpster. It was parked now, 2 blocks down, just visible through the gap between buildings. He could see the driver's silhouette, but not his face. The driver wasn't doing anything, just sitting there, waiting. Lucas had seen waiting before. He'd seen it in the foster homes, in the eyes of men who pretended to be nice, but weren't. He'd learned to recognize it, that patient, predatory stillness. Something was wrong. He just didn't know what yet. "Lucas, look what I made." Sophie came running out the back door of the diner, holding something in her hands. Her mother Elena's voice followed her. "Sophie, stay where I can see you." "I will, Mama." Lucas stood up, brushing dirt off his jeans. They were too big for him, held up by a rope belt he'd found at a construction site. His shirt was cleaner today. Mrs. Crawford had let him wash it in the diner's bathroom yesterday. Sophie thrust her creation toward him. It was a paper crane, slightly lopsided, made from a napkin. "I learned how to make a bird," she announced proudly. "It's for you, for your collection. You can put it with the butterfly." Lucas took the crane carefully, like it might dissolve if he held it too tight. "Thank you," he said, his voice cracked on the words. Sophie tilted her head. "Are you sad?" "No." "You look sad." "I'm not sad. I'm just—" He didn't know how to finish. He didn't have words for what he was. Sophie reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were small and warm and slightly sticky from whatever she'd been eating inside. "My daddy says that sometimes people are sad and they don't even know it," she said. "He says you just gotta be nice to them and maybe they'll feel better." "Your daddy sounds smart." "He's the smartest. He's got a motorcycle. It's really loud. He lets me sit on it sometimes, but only when it's not moving." She paused. "Do you want to meet him? He'd like you." Lucas felt his stomach tighten. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because parents didn't want their kids hanging around homeless boys. Because one look at him would make Sophie's father grab her hand and pull her away. Because this fragile friendship would shatter the moment an adult got involved." "Because I'm busy," he said lamely. Sophie didn't believe him. He could see it in her eyes. But she didn't push. "Okay," she said. "Maybe later." Elena Hartwell appeared at the back door, wiping her hands on her apron. "Sophie, come inside. Dinner rush is starting." "But Mama—" "Now, baby," Sophie sighed dramatically. "I gotta go." "I know." "Will you be here tomorrow?" Lucas nodded. "I'm always here." She gave him one last smile, then ran toward the door. She stopped halfway, turned back, and waved. "Bye, Lucas." "Bye, Sophie." Elena held the door open, watching her daughter approach. Then her eyes lifted to Lucas. For a moment, their gazes locked. Lucas braced himself for the disgust, the fear, the instinctive protectiveness that would make her grab Sophie and pull her inside and tell her never to talk to that dirty boy again. But Elena Hartwell did something unexpected. She smiled at him. It was small, tired, but real. A smile that said, "I see you." Then she ushered Sophie inside and closed the door. Lucas stood there for a long moment, the paper crane still in his hands. "I see you." When was the last time someone had seen him? The sun began to drop. Shadows stretched across the parking lot, crawling over the cracked pavement like dark fingers reaching for something to hold. Lucas should have settled into his spot behind the dumpster, should have eaten the half sandwich Mrs. Crawford had left for him in the usual place, a plastic container hidden behind the recycling bins where no one else would see. But he couldn't shake the feeling in his gut. The van was still there. He walked to the edge of the parking lot, keeping close to the building's wall. From here, he could see the street better. The van hadn't moved in 2 hours. That wasn't normal. People didn't sit in their cars for 2 hours doing nothing. Not unless they were waiting for something specific. Or someone. Lucas's heart began to beat faster. He thought about telling someone. Mrs. Crawford maybe. Or Elena. But what would he say? There's a van, and I have a bad feeling. They'd think he was crazy. They'd pat his head and tell him not to worry and send him away. No one listened to invisible boys. No one except Sophie. The back door opened. Lucas spun around, expecting Elena or Mrs. Crawford. It was Sophie. She was alone. "What are you doing?" he hissed, running toward her. "You're supposed to be inside. I forgot to give you this." She held out her hand. In her palm was a red lollipop. "Mrs. Crawford gave it to me, but I wanted you to have it." "Sophie, you have to go back inside." "Why? What's wrong?" "Everything," Lucas wanted to say. "Everything is wrong and I don't know how to explain it. Just please go back inside," he said. Sophie frowned. "You're being weird." "I'm not being weird, He heard it then. An engine starting. He turned. The white van was moving. "Sophie, get inside, now." "But..." He grabbed her hand and started pulling her toward the door. Sophie stumbled, confused, scared by the sudden change in his voice. "Lucas, you're hurting me." I'm sorry, just please." The van turned the corner. It was coming into the parking lot. Lucas's mind went blank with terror. There was no time. The door was 50 feet away. The van was moving fast. They weren't going to make it. "Run," he breathed. "Sophie, run." They ran. Lucas had never run so fast in his life. His lungs burned. His legs screamed. Sophie was crying now, stumbling over her own feet, and he was practically dragging her. 30 feet to the door. 20. The van doors slid open. A man jumped out. Big, fast, dark hoodie, 15 feet. "Help!" Lucas screamed. "Somebody help!" The man was right behind them. Lucas felt a hand grab his collar. He twisted, kicked, threw his elbow back as hard as he could. The grip loosened for 1 second. 1 second was enough. "Go!" He shoved Sophie forward. "Run to the door!" But Sophie didn't run. She turned around. "Lucas!" The man's fist connected with the side of Lucas's head. Stars exploded across his vision. He hit the ground hard, gravel tearing into his palms. Blood filled his mouth. He'd bitten his tongue. "Stupid kid," the man snarled. He stepped over Lucas, reaching for Sophie. No, no, no. Lucas grabbed the man's ankle. He held on with everything he had. "Run!" he screamed. "Sophie, run!" The man cursed, tried to shake him off. When that didn't work, he kicked. The boot slammed into Lucas's ribs. Something cracked. Pain, white hot, blinding, shot through his entire body. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think, but he didn't let go. He would never let go. The man kicked again, harder this time. Lucas's grip slipped. He tasted blood. Everything was spinning, darkening at the edges. "Mama!" Sophie screamed. "Mama! Mama!" The man lunged for her. Lucas grabbed his jacket. "Leave her alone!" The man spun around. There was something in his hand now, something that caught the fading sunlight. A knife. "You want to die, kid? Fine." The blade came down. Lucas didn't feel it at first. He saw the knife cutting into his arm, deep, blood welling up immediately. But the pain took a second to arrive. When it did, it was worse than anything he'd ever experienced. Worse than any beating in the foster homes. Worse than hunger. Worse than cold, he screamed. But he still didn't let go of Sophie's hand. "Get off him!" Mrs. Crawford came out of nowhere. She had a cast-iron skillet in her hand, and she swung it like a baseball bat. The man ducked, stumbled backward. "Help!" Mrs. Crawford screamed. "Somebody call 911!" The man looked at Sophie, at Lucas, at the skillet, then he ran. The van peeled out of the parking lot, tires squealing, and disappeared around the corner. Mrs. Crawford dropped to her knees beside Lucas. Oh God, you're bleeding everywhere. Sophie, Lucas gasped. Is Sophie? I'm here. Small hands touched his face. Sophie was crying, snot and tears running down her cheeks. Lucas, don't die. Please don't die. I'm not dying. But he wasn't sure. Everything was getting fuzzy. The world was tilting sideways. Stay with me, Mrs. Crawford was saying. Stay with me, honey. Help is coming. Lucas looked at Sophie. You're okay? She nodded, still crying. Good, he breathed. Good. His eyes closed. Elena Hartwell ran out the back door and stopped dead. Her daughter was covered in blood. For one terrible moment, her heart simply stopped. Sophie! Mama, help him, help Lucas! Elena's brain caught up. The blood wasn't Sophie's. It was the boy's. The homeless boy who was always in the parking lot. He was lying on the ground, deathly pale, his arms sliced open to the bone. What happened? She was already on her knees, stripping off her apron, pressing it against the wound. What happened? A man tried to take me, Sophie sobbed. Lucas stopped him. He wouldn't let go, Mama. He wouldn't let go. Elena looked down at the boy in her arms, 6 years old, half-starved, homeless, and he'd thrown himself in front of a knife for her daughter. The ambulance is coming, Mrs. Crawford said. I called 911. Elena nodded, but she was already reaching for her phone with her free hand, already dialing a number she knew by heart. It rang once. Hey, baby, what's up? Her voice cracked. Jack, something happened. Someone tried to take Sophie. Silence. 3 heartbeats of silence. Then, where are you? The diner, the parking lot. I'm on my way. The line went dead. Elena looked down at the boy bleeding in her arms. Hold on, sweetheart, please hold on. Lucas didn't respond, but somewhere in the distance an engine roared to life. Then another, then another. Jack Hartwell didn't remember the drive. One moment he was at the clubhouse. The next he was pulling into the diner parking lot, his brothers right behind him. The ambulance was already there. Paramedics were loading someone onto a stretcher. A small body, too small, covered in blood. His heart seized. Sophie! Daddy! She came running out of nowhere and slammed into his legs. He scooped her up, crushed her against his chest, and for 10 seconds, he just breathed. She was alive. She was here. She was okay. Baby girl, are you hurt? I'm okay, Daddy. But Lucas is not okay. The man hurt him really bad. Jack looked over her shoulder at the stretcher being loaded into the ambulance. He could see the boy's face, pale, eyes closed, an oxygen mask covering his mouth and nose. Who is Lucas? Elena appeared beside him, her hands covered in blood. He's a homeless boy who's been living behind the diner, she said. Jack, he saved her. He threw himself between Sophie and the kidnapper. He took a knife for her. Jack stared at the ambulance. A homeless 6-year-old had done what he wasn't there to do. A child had protected his daughter when he couldn't. What hospital? His voice didn't sound like his own. Millbrook General. Jack handed Sophie to Elena. Take her home. Get the clubhouse locked down. No one in or out until I know what's going on. Where are you going? The hospital. He climbed back on his bike. That boy saved my daughter's life. I'm going to make damn sure he doesn't die alone. The waiting room was cold. Jack sat in a plastic chair, still wearing his leather vest, still covered in road dust. 3 of his brothers were with him. Stonewall, Diesel, Ghost. They didn't speak. There was nothing to say. 2 hours passed. A doctor finally appeared, looking tired and grim. Family of Lucas, he checked his clipboard. We don't have a last name. Jack stood. I'm here for him. The doctor frowned. Are you a relative? Does it matter? We need someone to authorize treatment. The boy has no identification, no insurance, no emergency contacts. Legally, I'll authorize it. Sir, you're not... Jack stepped closer. He was not a small man, 6'3", 240, covered in tattoos, with a presence that made people instinctively step back. That boy saved my daughter's life tonight, he said quietly. He took a knife to keep her safe. Whatever he needs, surgery, blood, specialists, I'm paying for it. All of it. Is that clear? The doctor swallowed. Crystal clear. Good. Now tell me if he's going to live. The doctor explained. Broken ribs, a concussion, a 7-inch laceration on his left forearm that had nicked an artery. He lost a lot of blood. They had to operate to repair the damage. He's stable now, but the next 24 hours are critical. Can I see him? He's unconscious. He won't know you're there. I don't care. The doctor led him down a long hallway to a room at the end. Through the window, Jack could see the boy lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines that beeped and hummed. He looked even smaller here, 6 years old, bones showing through his skin, old bruises on his arms that had nothing to do with tonight. Jack's hands curled into fists. What do we know about him? He asked. Nothing. No records. No one's reported a missing child matching his description. He's a ghost. He's no ghost. I'll leave you alone, the doctor said. Jack pulled a chair up to the bed and sat down heavily. For a long moment, he just stared at the boy. Then, slowly, he reached out and took Lucas's small hand in his. Hey, kid, he said softly. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm going to say this anyway. He squeezed gently. You saved my little girl tonight. You didn't know her daddy was a biker. You didn't know she had 195 men who would have killed for her. You just saw her in trouble and you threw yourself in front of a knife. His voice cracked. I've known grown men who wouldn't do what you did. Hell, I've known brothers who talked big but ran when it mattered. But you're 6 years old and you almost died for a girl you barely know. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to wake up. You're going to heal. And whatever comes next, you're not doing it alone. I don't care if you've got no family. I don't care if the whole damn system has written you off. You're not invisible anymore. You hear me? He leaned closer. Not to me. Not ever again. The machines beeped. Lucas didn't stir, but Jack stayed. He stayed all night. At 3:47 a.m., his phone rang. Yeah? It's Stonewall. We got a problem. Jack stepped out of the room, keeping his voice low. Talk to me. That van you had us looking for? We found it, abandoned 2 miles outside of town. And? There were zip ties in the back, Jack, children's shoes, and a list. Jack's blood went cold. What kind of list? Names, ages, photos, 12 kids, all under 10 years old. Silence. Our girl Sophie was on there. Jack grabbed the wall. His knuckles went white. This wasn't random, Stonewall continued. This was organized, professional. Someone's been targeting kids in this area for months. Jack looked through the window at Lucas. A 6-year-old homeless boy had stumbled onto a trafficking operation, and he'd almost died trying to stop it. Call church, Jack said. Everyone. Wake them up if you have to. What are we doing? What we do best. He hung up and walked back into the room. Lucas was still unconscious, his small chest rising and falling with each breath. You didn't just save Sophie, Jack whispered. You might have saved them all. He pulled out his phone and started making calls. By sunrise, every Hell's Angels chapter within 300 miles would know what happened. By noon, the roads would shake with the sound of 195 engines. And by nightfall, the men who had tried to take his daughter would learn what happened when you threatened someone the angels protected. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, Jack Hartwell sat beside a 6-year-old hero's bed and watched him breathe. The sun was just breaking over Millbrook when the first motorcycle pulled into the hospital parking lot. Then another, then 10 more. Jack hadn't slept. His eyes burned. His back ached from the plastic chair, but he hadn't moved from Lucas's bedside except to make calls. Now, standing at the window, he watched his brothers arrive. Stonewall was first, then Diesel, Ghost, Razor, the twins they called Salt and Pepper. Behind them came faces Jack hadn't seen in months. Riders from Austin, from Houston, from as far as El Paso. His phone buzzed. "President, we're in the lot, 47 and counting. Keep them quiet, this is a hospital." "Copy that." Jack looked back at Lucas. The boy hadn't woken up. The machines kept beeping their steady rhythm, the only proof that he was still fighting. "I gotta step out for a minute, kid," Jack said softly. "But I'm coming back. That's a promise." He walked out of the room and headed for the parking lot. The sight that greeted him made his chest tight. 47 motorcycles lined up in perfect rows. 47 men in leather vests standing silent in the morning light. Some he knew like brothers, others he'd only met once or twice. But they'd all come. They'd all come for a 6-year-old boy none of them had ever met. Stonewall stepped forward. "Word spread fast, Prez. Everyone wants in." "In on what?" "Whatever you're planning." Stonewall's jaw was set hard. "We saw the list. 12 kids. Someone's been hunting children in our territory, and we didn't even know." Jack felt the anger rise in his chest, hot and sharp. "Where's the list now?" "Ghost has it. We made copies. Sent the original to a contact at the sheriff's office. Anonymous tip." "Good. What else?" "We traced the van's registration. Fake plates. But Razor found a parking ticket from 3 weeks ago. Same van parked outside an elementary school in Cedar Creek." Jack's hands clenched into fists. "They've been scouting," he said, "for months, maybe longer, and nobody noticed." "Nobody was looking," Stonewall paused, "until that kid in there decided to look." Jack turned back toward the hospital. A 6-year-old homeless boy had seen what cops, parents, and an entire town had missed. "Get everyone inside," he said. "Conference room on the 2nd floor. We need to talk." Elena arrived at 7:15 a.m. Sophie was holding her hand. Sophie's eyes were red from crying, and she clutched a piece of paper against her chest. "How is he?" Elena asked. "Still unconscious. Doctors say he might wake up today." "Might?" "They're not sure." Sophie tugged on Jack's jacket. "Daddy, I made something for Lucas." She held up the paper. It was a butterfly, carefully folded from a napkin, lopsided, imperfect, but made with more love than Jack had seen in anything. "I want to give it to him," Sophie said. Jack knelt down to her level. "Baby girl, Lucas is sleeping right now." "I know, but when he wakes up, I want the butterfly to be the first thing he sees, so he knows I didn't leave." Jack's throat tightened. "Okay," he said. "Let's go put it by his bed." Sophie walked straight to Lucas's bed, stood on her tiptoes, and carefully placed the paper butterfly on the pillow next to his head. "There," she whispered. "Now you won't be scared when you wake up." Elena watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "He's so small," she said. "God, Jack, he's smaller than Sophie." "I know. How does a child that young end up on the streets? Where are his parents? Where's the system that's supposed to protect kids like him?" Jack didn't have an answer. He'd been asking himself the same questions all night. "Mama," Sophie said, "Lucas doesn't have a mama or a daddy, does he?" Elena wiped her eyes. "I don't know, baby." "Then who takes care of him?" Silence. Sophie looked at Lucas's pale face, at the bandages on his arm, at the machines monitoring his heart. "I'll take care of him," she said. "He saved me, so now I'll save him." Jack and Elena exchanged a look. "Baby girl," Jack started, "it's not that simple." "Why not?" He didn't have an answer for that either. At 9:30 a.m., Detective Frank Holden walked into the hospital. He was a big man, heavy-set, gray hair, and a weathered face that had seen too much. Jack knew him from way back. They'd grown up in the same neighborhood, took different paths, but kept a mutual respect. Jack, they shook hands. Hell of a night, Holden said. You got our package? The list? Yeah, we got it. Holden glanced around, lowered his voice. You know I can't officially use anonymous tips, but I made some calls. FBI is interested. How interested? Very. This might be bigger than we thought. How big? Big. Holden dropped his voice lower. That list had 12 names, but we found another list in a database the feds have been tracking. Same format, same organization. Over 50 kids across 3 states. Jack felt sick. At least 50. Some already missing, some still being watched. Holden paused. That little boy in there? He stumbled onto something massive. If he hadn't intervened when he did, your daughter would have been number 53. The world tilted slightly. Jack grabbed the wall to steady himself. Who are these people? We don't know yet, but we're going to find out. Holden looked toward Lucas's room. How's the kid? He got any family? None that we can find, Holden sighed. Figured. Kids like him fall through every crack in the system. No one even knows they exist until something like this happens. Well, people know now. Yeah. Holden studied Jack's face. What are you planning, Jack? What do you mean? I've known you 30 years. I know that look. You're planning something. Jack met his eyes. I'm planning to make sure whoever did this pays for it. Let us handle it. This is police business. And I'll let you handle the legal side. But if you think I'm going to sit around while the people who tried to take my daughter are still out there, you don't know me as well as you think. Holden was quiet for a moment. Just don't do anything stupid, he said finally. Define stupid. Anything that lands you in a cell next to them. Jack smiled. No promises. At 11 a.m., Lucas's monitors started beeping faster. The nurse rushed in. Jack and Elena were right behind her. What's happening? Elena demanded. He's waking up. The nurse checked the machines, adjusted something on the IV. His vitals are stabilizing. This is good. Jack moved to the bedside. Lucas's eyes were moving beneath his closed lids. His fingers twitched. A small sound escaped his throat, something between a whimper and a groan. Easy, kid, Jack said. You're safe. You're in a hospital. Nobody's going to hurt you. Lucas's eyes opened. For a moment, he just stared at the ceiling, confusion clouding his face. Then his gaze shifted to Jack, and pure terror flooded his expression. He tried to move, tried to get away, but the IV and monitors held him in place. Hey, 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 Jack held up his hands. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm Sophie's dad. Lucas froze. Sophie? Yeah, Sophie, the little girl you saved. Memory crashed back into Lucas's eyes. The van, the knife, the blood. Is she okay? His voice was hoarse, barely a whisper. The man, did he? She's fine. She's perfect. Because of you. Lucas's body sagged with relief. Tears spilled down his cheeks. I thought he was going to take her. I thought, he didn't. You stopped him. The door opened and Sophie slipped in. She had been waiting in the hallway, and nobody had been able to keep her out once she heard Lucas's voice. Lucas! She ran to the bed, climbed onto the chair beside it, and grabbed his hand. You're awake! You're awake! I knew you'd wake up. I made you a butterfly. See? She pointed to the paper butterfly on his pillow. Lucas looked at it. Then he looked at Sophie. And for the first time since Jack had met him, the boy smiled. I'm hungry, Lucas said. It was the first thing he'd said in an hour that wasn't about Sophie's safety. Jack laughed. Actually laughed. Yeah, I bet you are. What do you want? Lucas hesitated, like he wasn't sure if the question was real, like he'd never been asked what he wanted before. Anything? Anything. Name it. A pause. A cheeseburger? Done. Jack pulled out his phone. Stonewall, get me the biggest cheeseburger in Millbrook, fries too, and a milkshake. He looked at Lucas. What flavor, kid? Lucas blinked. Chocolate? Chocolate it is. 30 minutes later, Lucas was sitting up in bed, devouring a cheeseburger bigger than his head. Sophie sat beside him, stealing fries and chattering about everything and nothing. Jack watched from the corner of the room. This kid had been living on scraps for God knows how long, sleeping in alleys, wearing clothes held together with rope and prayers. And he'd still found the courage to throw himself in front of a knife for a girl he barely knew. What kind of world let children like this exist in the shadows? And what kind of man would Jack be if he sent Lucas back to those shadows? Mr. Hartwell? A woman appeared in the doorway. 30s, dark hair pulled back, wearing a blazer and carrying a clipboard. Jack stood. That's me. I'm Sandra Nguyen from Child Protective Services. I understand you've been watching over our John Doe. His name is Lucas. Lucas, right. She glanced at the boy, at the cheeseburger, at Sophie sitting on the bed. I need to speak with you privately. They stepped into the hallway. Mr. Hartwell, I appreciate what you've done for this child, but you need to understand, he's a ward of the state now. We'll be taking over his care. Taking over? How? He'll be placed in a foster home as soon as he's medically cleared. Foster home? Jack's voice was flat. You mean the system that already failed him? Excuse me? He's been on the streets for over a year, Ms. Gwynn. Where was CPS then? Where were the foster homes when he was eating out of dumpsters and sleeping behind restaurants? Sandra's jaw tightened. The system isn't perfect. The system is broken, and I'm not letting you throw him back into it. You don't have a choice. You're not his family. Jack stepped closer. Not threatening, he'd never threaten a woman, but close enough that she had to look up to meet his eyes. That boy saved my daughter's life. He almost died protecting her. In my world, that makes him family. Your world? You mean your motorcycle club? I mean the world where actions matter more than paperwork, where courage means something, where you don't abandon people just because the system says you should. Sandra's expression flickered. For a moment, something almost like understanding crossed her face. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Hartwell? I want to keep him. Silence. Keep him, officially, legally, whatever paperwork you need me to sign. You want to foster a child you met 12 hours ago? I want to give that child a home. Something tells me he's never had one. Sandra studied him for a long moment. This isn't how it usually works. Nothing about this situation is usual. You'd need to be certified, background checks, home inspections, interviews. So do them. Do all of it. You'll find that I'm more than qualified. Mr. Hartwell, Jack, or Axel, Mr. Hartwell was my father. A tiny smile tugged at her lips. Jack, this process takes time. How much time? Weeks, maybe months. Then start now, because that boy in there is not going back to the streets. Not today, not ever. Sandra looked at him. Then she looked through the window at Lucas, who was laughing at something Sophie had said. Let me make some calls, she said. At 3 p.m., Lucas had his first panic attack. 1 minute he was fine, talking to Sophie about her school. The next, his breathing went ragged. His eyes went wide. He started clawing at the IV in his arm. Hey, whoa, whoa! Jack grabbed his hands. Lucas, stop! You're safe. I have to go, Lucas gasped. I have to go. They'll find me. They always find me. Who? Who finds you? The foster people. They put me back. They always put me back. And the bad things happen. And I can't. Lucas! Jack gripped his shoulders, forced the boy to look at him. Nobody's putting you anywhere, you hear me? You're staying right here. You don't understand, I ran away. They're going to be mad. They're going to send me to the bad place. There is no bad place, not anymore. But listen to me. Jack's voice was firm but gentle. I don't know what happened to you before. I don't know what those foster homes were like. But I'm telling you right now, you're not going back. Not to any of them. Lucas's breathing slowed slightly. How do you know? Because I won't let it happen. But you're not my dad. You can't. I can, and I will. Jack squeezed his shoulders. I talked to the CPS lady. We're going to work something out. It might take a while, but until then you're staying with us. With me and Elena and Sophie. In our home. Lucas stared at him. Why? Why what? Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Jack sat back. You're right, I don't know you. But I know what you did. And that tells me everything I need to know about who you are. The machines beeped steadily. Lucas's hands were shaking. I'm scared, he whispered. Of what? That you'll change your mind. That I'll do something wrong and you'll send me away, like everyone else. Jack felt his heart crack right down the middle. Kid, let me tell you something. I've done a lot of things in my life. Some good, some not so good. But I've never broken a promise. Not once. And I'm promising you right now, you're not going anywhere. Promise? Promise. Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly he reached out and took Jack's hand. It was the first time he'd initiated contact with anyone. At 6 p.m., the clubhouse called. President, we've got something. Jack stepped out of the room. Talk. Razor traced the parking ticket. The van was registered to a shell company, but we followed the money. There's a property outside town. Old warehouse near the river. We've been watching it for 3 hours. And? There's movement, people coming and going. Stonewall's voice dropped. And Prez, we saw a kid in the window. Jack's blood turned to ice. How many men inside? At least 6 that we've counted, maybe more. Armed? We have to assume so. Jack closed his eyes. Those kids on the list, they weren't just names anymore. They were real. And at least one of them was in that warehouse right now. Call Holden. Tell him what we found. The cops, Prez. By the time they get a warrant, I know, but we need them there when it goes down. We find the kids. We call in the cavalry. This has to be clean, Stonewall. These kids have been through enough. Understood. What about us? Surround the property. Nobody in, nobody out. If anyone tries to run with those children, you stop them. And if they shoot first? Jack's jaw tightened. Then we finish it. At 8:30 p.m., Elena came to relieve Jack at the hospital. Go, she said. Do what you need to do. Are you sure? He saved our daughter, Jack. Whatever it takes to stop the people who tried to hurt her. I'm behind you, all the way. Jack kissed her, long and deep. I love you. I love you too. Now go be a hero. He walked out of the room. Sophie was asleep in a chair. Lucas was awake, watching. You're leaving, he said. It wasn't a question. For a little while. Are you coming back? Yes. Promise? Jack walked to the bed. He took Lucas's hand. I promised you I wouldn't leave you alone, and I meant it. But there are other kids out there who need help right now. Kids who might end up in the same place Sophie almost ended up. Lucas's eyes widened. The man who tried to take her, he wasn't alone? There are more of them, and we're going to stop them. Lucas was quiet for a moment. Then, be careful. I will. And Mr. Hartwell? Yeah? Make them pay. Jack looked into those young eyes that had seen too much, survived too much, been failed by too many people. Count on it, he said, and walked out into the night. 53 motorcycles arrayed in a silent semicircle. No engines running, no lights. Stonewall stepped forward. Status. 8 men inside, confirmed. We spotted 3 kids through the windows. There might be more. Cops? Holden is 5 minutes out with the tactical team. He's bringing everything he's got. Good. Jack pulled on his gloves. Remember, the children are the priority. Everything else is secondary. What if they use the kids as shields? Then we do this smart. No heroics. No one gets hurt except the people who deserve it. 5 minutes later, red and blue lights appeared on the horizon. The radio crackled in Jack's ear. All units in position, awaiting your signal, detective. Holden's voice came through, steady, controlled. Hell's Angels, you copy? Copy, we're ready. Remember the deal, Jack. You're here as civilian observers. You see anyone trying to run with those kids, you stop them. That's it. My men handle the breach. Understood. I mean it. No cowboy stuff. Jack smiled. Wouldn't dream of it. Stonewall moved closer, his voice low. You really going to let the cops have all the fun? I'm going to let the cops take the legal risk. But if anyone slips through with a child, Jack's jaw tightened. They won't slip far. 53 bikers spread out along the perimeter, silent, watchful, a ring of leather and steel that nothing would pass through. Jack checked his watch. 11:47 p.m. Go time in 3 minutes, Holden announced. Jack closed his eyes and thought of Lucas, 6 years old, bleeding in a parking lot, still holding Sophie's hand. That boy had shown more courage than most men showed in a lifetime. Tonight, Jack would honor that courage. 11:50 p.m., the tactical team moved. The night exploded into chaos. Shouts, gunfire, breaking glass. Jack's hands gripped his handlebars so hard, his knuckles went white. Shots fired! Shots fired! Suspect down in the east corridor. We've got runners, 2 males heading for the north exit. Jack's head snapped toward the north side. 2 figures burst through a fire door, sprinting toward the tree line. One of them was carrying something. No, someone. A child. Stonewall. I see them. 4 motorcycles roared to life. Jack led the charge, his engine screaming as he tore across the open ground. The runners heard them coming. The one without the child split off heading east. The other kept going north, the small body bouncing in his arms. Ghost, Razor, take the east runner. Stonewall, with me. The bikes separated. Jack pushed his Harley harder than he'd ever pushed it. The gap closed. 50 yards, 30, 20. The runner looked over his shoulder and Jack saw his face. Young, panicked, desperate, and absolutely terrified. Good. Stop, Jack bellowed. Put the child down. The man kept running. 10 yards. Jack made a decision. He gunned the engine, pulled ahead of the runner, and swung his bike sideways. The man tried to dodge, but Stonewall was already there, blocking the other direction. Trapped. Nowhere to go, Jack said, killing his engine. Put the child down. The man was breathing hard, wild-eyed. The child in his arms, a girl, maybe 5 or 6, was limp. Unconscious or drugged. Jack couldn't tell. Back off, the man screamed. I'll hurt her. I swear to God I'll hurt her. No, you won't. I will. You won't. Jack stepped off his bike, slowly, calmly. Because if you do, what happens next will make you wish you'd never been born. You can't touch me. The cops are right there. The cops are busy. And by the time they get here, this will be over, one way or another. The man's eyes darted left, right, searching for an escape that didn't exist. Who are you people? We're the Hell's Angels. Jack took another step forward. And that little girl you tried to take yesterday? She belongs to me. The color drained from the man's face. Oh, God. Yeah. Another step. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to put that child down, gently, and then you're going to lie face down on the ground with your hands behind your head. And if I don't? Jack smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Then I'm going to show you what happens to people who hurt children in my town. The man looked at Jack, at Stonewall, at the other bikers now forming a circle around them. He put the child down. Holden arrived 3 minutes later, breathing hard. Damn it, Jack. He was running with a kid. Was I supposed to let him go? Holden looked at the man lying face down in the dirt, hands zip-tied behind his back. Then at the little girl, now conscious and crying in the arms of a female officer. She okay? Drugged, but alive. Paramedics are on their way. Holden ran a hand over his face. We got 7 kids inside. 7? Ages 4 to 11. Most of them drugged, some of them, his voice cracked. Some of them have been there for weeks. Jack felt his stomach turn. How many suspects? 8 total, 2 dead, 4 in custody, 2 runners. Holden nodded toward the man on the ground. Looks like you got one of them. Ghost and Razor have the other. Of course they do. Holden shook his head. This is going to be a paperwork nightmare. Those kids are alive, Frank. That's what matters. The rest is details. Holden was quiet for a long moment. Yeah, he said finally. Yeah, I guess it is. At 2:30 a.m., Jack walked back into the hospital. Elena was asleep in the chair beside Lucas's bed. Sophie was curled up next to Lucas, her small hand holding his even in sleep. Lucas was awake. His eyes found Jack immediately. You came back. Told you I would. Did you find them? The other kids? Jack pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. His body ached. His heart ached worse. Yeah, we found them. How many? 8. All safe now. Lucas's eyes filled with tears. I heard the nurses talking, he whispered. They said there was a list. They said Sophie was on it. She was. They said there were other names too. Kids from all over. There were. If I hadn't seen that van, Lucas's voice broke. If I hadn't been in that parking lot, but you were, Jack leaned forward. You were there. And because you were there, Sophie is safe. And because you stopped that man, we found the others. 8 kids, Lucas. 8 kids are going home to their families because of what you did. Lucas stared at him. I didn't do anything. I couldn't let him take her. I couldn't. That's exactly what courage is, kid. Seeing something wrong and not being able to let it happen. Most people look the other way. You didn't. I was scared. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you're scared to death and you do the right thing anyway. Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Then, Mr. Hartwell? Yeah? What's going to happen to me now? Jack looked at this boy, this small, broken, impossibly brave boy who had lost everything and still found the strength to save a stranger. What do you want to happen? Lucas glanced at Sophie still sleeping beside him, at Elena in the chair, at the paper butterfly on his pillow. I want to stay, he whispered, but I know I can't. I know that's not how it works. People like me don't get to. People like me, homeless kids, foster kids. We don't get families. We get placements. Temporary. Until something goes wrong and they send us somewhere else. Is that what you think is going to happen? It's what always happens. Jack reached out and took Lucas's hand. Not this time. Not this time. Jack said those words like a man who'd carved them into bone. And Lucas wanted to believe him. God, he wanted to believe him. But belief was a luxury homeless kids couldn't afford. So Lucas did what he always did. He waited for the lie to reveal itself. Friday came faster than anyone expected. Sandra Nguyen arrived at 10 a.m. with a stack of papers in a pen. Jack and Elena were already in the room. Sophie was sitting cross-legged on Lucas's bed, folding a napkin into something that was supposed to be a dragon, but looked more like a crumpled frog. Background check cleared, Sandra said. Home study approved. References verified. She set the documents on the hospital table. Sign here, here, and here. Jack signed without hesitation. His hand didn't shake. His eyes didn't waver. He signed like a man who'd been waiting his whole life for this moment and didn't even know it. Elena signed after him. Her tears hit the paper before the ink dried. Congratulations, Sandra said. You're now Lucas's official foster parents. Temporary custody, subject to court review in 90 days. And after 90 days, if everything goes well, we can discuss permanent placement, possibly adoption. Jack looked at Elena. She was crying so hard she couldn't speak. He pulled her close and held her. The door burst open. Is it done? Sophie was already halfway across the room. She'd been sent to the hallway 5 minutes ago and had lasted exactly 4 of them. Is it official? Is Lucas staying? It's official, Jack said. He's staying. Sophie screamed so loud the nurses came running. 2 of them, both alarmed, both immediately waved off by Sandra, who was trying very hard not to smile. He's staying! Lucas is staying forever! Lucas didn't scream. He didn't move. He just stood there by the bed in the borrowed clothes Elena had brought him yesterday, and his eyes went wide, and his mouth opened, and nothing came out. Forever? He whispered. Well, Jack said, let's start with forever and see how it goes. For a long moment, nothing happened. Lucas looked at Jack, at Elena, at Sophie, who was bouncing on her toes with her fists clenched against her chest, at Sandra, who was pretending to organize her clipboard but was really wiping her eyes. Then his face crumpled. The tears came. Not quiet tears, deep, racking sobs that shook his entire body. His knees buckled. He grabbed the bed rail to keep from falling, but his hands were shaking too hard, and he slid to the floor, and the sound that came out of him was something no 6-year-old should ever have to make. Years of loneliness, years of fear, years of believing that no one would ever want him, that he was broken, that invisible was the best he could hope for. All of it pouring out in a flood he couldn't control and didn't try to. Elena was there in an instant. She dropped to the floor beside him and pulled him into her arms. It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay. Let it out. I thought nobody would ever. I know. Jack knelt beside them, one hand on Lucas's back, the other on Sophie's shoulder. Sophie had gone quiet. She was staring at Lucas with huge, serious eyes. And then she crawled down from the bed and wrapped her small arms around him from the other side. Don't cry, Lucas. You're home now. You're home. You're home, Jack said quietly. Whatever that means, whatever that looks like, you're home. Lucas looked up at him through his tears. Snot was running down his face. His eyes were red and swollen. He looked like exactly what he was, a broken child who had just been told, for the first time in his life, that someone wanted him. I don't know how to have a home, he said. That's okay, we'll figure it out together. The next morning, the world shook. Lucas heard them before he saw them, a distant rumble, like thunder rolling in from the edge of the sky, except the sky was clear and blue, and the sound kept getting louder. He was still in the hospital. One more day, the doctors said, just to be safe. Elena had stayed the night in the chair beside his bed. Sophie was curled up next to him again, her arm thrown across his chest like she was afraid he'd disappear if she let go. The rumble grew. Lucas's eyes snapped open. Elena was already awake, standing at the window. Jack, she said into her phone, what's happening? Lucas couldn't hear the answer, but he saw Elena's face change. Her hand went to her mouth, her eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Lucas, she said, come here. He slid out of bed carefully, trying not to wake Sophie. He failed. Sophie popped up like a jack-in-the-box. What's that noise? Come to the window, both of you. Lucas looked. His mouth fell open. Motorcycles, dozens of them, pouring into the hospital parking lot like a river of chrome and leather. They came from every direction, filling every space, spilling onto the street and blocking traffic, and nobody seemed to care. The sound was enormous. It filled the room, filled his chest, filled something inside him that had been empty for so long he'd forgotten it was there. What's happening? He breathed. Jack's voice came from the doorway. He'd been downstairs. His eyes were red, and he was smiling in a way Lucas had never seen before. They're here for you. For me? For you. But I don't know any of them. Doesn't matter. They know you. They know what you did. Jack walked to the window and stood beside him. In our world, that means something. How many? Sophie pressed her face against the glass. Daddy, how many are there? Jack's phone buzzed. He checked it. Stonewall says 195, and that's just the ones in the lot. There's more coming. 195. Lucas couldn't process the number. 195 people. For him. For a boy who had been counting bottle caps behind a dumpster 4 days ago. I don't understand, he said. His voice was so small it almost disappeared. Why do they care? They don't even know me. Jack put his hand on Lucas's shoulder. Because you're one of us now, and we take care of our own. The doctors cleared Lucas at noon. Jack wheeled him out the hospital's front entrance, and the world erupted. 195 bikers rose to their feet. 195 engines roared in unison. The sound was deafening, overwhelming, a wall of thunder that vibrated through Lucas's chest and shook him to his core. He grabbed the armrests of his wheelchair. His knuckles went white. It's okay, Jack said, leaning close. They're not going to hurt you. They're saluting you. Saluting? Watch. One by one, the bikers removed their helmets. Old men with gray beards. Young men with tattoos crawling up their necks. Women with leather vests and fierce eyes. They placed their right fists over their hearts and bowed their heads. 195 bikers. One 6-year-old boy. Silence fell. Complete, total. The only sound was the wind and Lucas's own heartbeat hammering in his ears. Then Stonewall stepped forward. He was a massive man. 6'5", 260, hands like dinner plates. A face that looked like it had been carved out of granite with a dull chisel. He walked through the crowd, and people parted for him like water. And he stopped in front of Lucas's wheelchair and did something nobody expected. He knelt. This giant of a man, this war veteran, this biker who had ridden through hell and back, got down on one knee in front of a 6-year-old boy and bowed his head. On behalf of the Hells Angels, he said, his voice carried across the parking lot, every word deliberate, every word heavy. We honor you, Lucas. You showed us what courage looks like. You reminded us why we wear these patches. And from this day forward, you are one of us. Lucas couldn't speak, couldn't move. Tears streamed down his face, and he didn't wipe them away. Stonewall reached into his vest and pulled out something small. He held it in his palm for a moment, looking at it, and something shifted in his face. Something deep and private and painful. This belonged to my son, he said quietly, so quietly that only Lucas and Jack could hear. His name was Danny. He died when he was 8, leukemia. He never got to prospect, never got to ride, but he always wanted this. He pressed the object into Lucas's palm. It was a small metal pin, a winged skull with a halo through it. You wear this, Stonewall said, and every angel in the country knows your family. You need anything, anywhere, anytime. You show them this pin, and they'll move heaven and earth to help you. Lucas looked at the pin, then at Stonewall, then at the 195 bikers still standing at attention. His hand was shaking so hard the pin rattled against his fingers. I don't deserve this, he whispered. Kid, Stonewall's voice cracked for the first time. You earned it. Blood price, the highest price there is. He stood, stepped back, and the silence broke. 195 engines roared to life. The convoy formed, Jack's truck in the center, 195 motorcycles around it, police sirens clearing the way. They rode through Millbrook like a parade. People came out of their houses. They lined the sidewalks. They held signs, some handmade, some printed, all of them saying the same thing in different words. We love you, Lucas. Millbrook's hero. You're not invisible anymore. Lucas read each sign through the truck window. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. Why do they care? He asked. Elena turned from the passenger seat. Because you did something beautiful, sweetheart. You reminded people that good still exists, that courage isn't dead. They needed that more than you know. I didn't do it for them. I know. That's what makes it special. Sophie bounced in the seat beside Lucas. This is like a parade just for you. It's too much, Lucas said quietly. Jack glanced in the rearview mirror. Get used to it, kid. You're family now, and this family doesn't do anything small. The Hartwell house had a banner stretched across the porch. Welcome home, Lucas. Balloons, streamers, a table loaded with food, and people. So many people. Neighbors, club members, Mrs. Crawford from the diner, even Detective Holden, looking deeply uncomfortable in civilian clothes. Lucas's legs shook as he climbed out of the truck. I can't, he whispered to Jack. There's too many people. I don't know how to. Hey, Jack gripped his shoulder. You don't have to do anything. Just be here. That's enough. But they're all looking at me. Because they're proud of you. Because they want you to know you matter. Jack's voice softened. When's the last time someone told you that you mattered, Lucas? Lucas couldn't remember. Maybe never. Come on, Jack said. One step at a time. Mrs. Crawford found him first. She hugged him so tight he thought his ribs might re-break. You brave, beautiful boy, she said, tears streaming down her face. I always knew there was something special about you. Always. You left me sandwiches, Lucas said, when I was living behind your diner. You left them where I could find them. You knew. I always knew. You were the only one who was nice to me. Mrs. Crawford cried harder. Holden found him sitting alone on the porch steps an hour later. The party was still going inside. Lucas had needed air, needed quiet, needed a minute to remember how to breathe. Mind if I join you? Lucas shrugged. The detective lowered himself down with a grunt. Getting old. Knees aren't what they used to be. Silence. I wanted to thank you, Holden said. What you did that night, stopping that man, it broke the whole case wide open. We've made arrests in 3 states, rescued 11 more kids since Friday. Lucas's head snapped up. 11? Because of the information we got from the warehouse. Names, locations, contacts. It's all connected, and you pulled the first thread. I didn't know, I saw him watching Sophie, and I knew something was wrong. That's called instinct. Most cops take years to develop it. You've got it naturally. Lucas was quiet for a moment. My mom used to say I noticed things other people missed. She said it was a gift. She was right. She died when I was 4. Cancer. Holden nodded slowly. I'm sorry. After that, I went to foster care, but the families, Lucas's voice trailed off. They weren't good. Some were okay, some weren't. I ran away when I was 5. Lived on the streets ever since. The system failed you. The system doesn't care about kids like me. Maybe, but there are people who do. Jack and Elena, they care. The angels care. Holden paused. Hell, I care. And I'm a cop who's supposed to be impartial. Lucas looked at him. Why? Because courage deserves to be honored. Because a child who risks his life for another child deserves more than what the world gave him. Holden stood up, his knees cracking. You ever think about what you want to be when you grow up? I never thought I'd grow up. The words hit Holden like a fist. He stood there for a moment, jaw working, eyes wet. Well, he said quietly, you're going to now, so maybe start thinking about it. He walked back inside, left Lucas alone with the sunset and a question he'd never been asked before. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. His room, the words felt foreign, was warm and quiet. The bed was soft, clean sheets, a real pillow, a blanket that didn't smell like mildew. It was too much, too different, too safe. He slipped out of bed and padded to the window. Can't sleep either? He spun around. Sophie stood in the doorway, clutching a stuffed bear. You scared me. Sorry, I heard you moving around. She walked in and sat on the edge of his bed. Are you okay? Yeah, just not used to it. Used to what? This, all of this, having a room, having people. Sophie tilted her head. You're going to have us forever now. That's what Daddy said. Nothing's forever. We are. She said it with absolute certainty. The certainty of a 4-year-old who had never been betrayed by the world. You saved me, so now we're family. That's how it works. Who told you that? Nobody. I just know. She held out her stuffed bear. You can borrow Captain Fuzz if you want. He helps me sleep when I'm scared. Lucas looked at the worn bear, its fur matted from years of love, one eye slightly loose. I can't take Captain Fuzz. He's yours. Just for tonight, he'll protect you. Something broke open in Lucas's chest. A wall he'd been building for over a year, crumbling, brick by brick. Okay, he whispered, just for tonight. Sophie smiled, handed him the bear, and climbed up next to him. I'll stay too, in case you get scared. You don't have to. I want to. She curled up beside him, her small body warm against his side. Within minutes, she was asleep. Lucas held Captain Fuzz against his chest and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in over a year, he didn't feel alone. Morning came too fast. Lucas woke to the smell of bacon and the sound of laughter from downstairs. Sophie was gone, but Captain Fuzz was still in his arms. He made his way to the kitchen. There he is, Elena smiled. Hungry? Lucas nodded. Sit down, breakfast is almost ready. He sat across from Jack, who lowered his newspaper and studied him. Sleep okay? Sophie came in. She gave me her bear. She does that. Kid's got a bigger heart than anyone I know. Jack paused. You're part of that heart now. You know that, right? Lucas didn't answer. Hey, Jack leaned forward. I know this is hard. I know you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was the same way when someone first took me in. What happened? I kept waiting for them to give up on me, kept testing them, pushing them away, doing everything I could to prove I wasn't worth the trouble. Did they give up? No, they just loved me harder. Eventually, I figured out that some people actually mean what they say. How long did it take? Jack smiled. Too long. Don't make my mistake, kid. Let yourself be happy. You've earned it. Elena set a plate in front of Lucas. Bacon, eggs, toast, orange juice. More food than he used to eat in a week. Thank you, he said. You're welcome, sweetheart. Now eat. You're too skinny. The doorbell rang at 11 a.m. Jack answered it and found Sandra Wynn on the porch. But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a man and a woman. Middle-aged, well-dressed, expensive car in the driveway. Mr. Hartwell, may we come in? Jack's eyes narrowed. What's this about? These are David and Christine Palmer. They'd like to discuss Lucas. Discuss him how? The man stepped forward. Mr. Hartwell, my name is David Palmer. My wife and I are Lucas's biological aunt and uncle. The world stopped. Elena appeared behind Jack. What did you say? Lucas's mother was my sister, David explained. She died when Lucas was 4. We tried to find him after she passed, but by the time we located his foster placement, he'd already run away. We've been searching for over a year, Christine added. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying for hours. When we saw him on the news, we couldn't believe it. We thought he was dead. Jack didn't move from the doorway. His hand gripped the doorframe so hard the wood creaked. If you've been searching for over a year, why didn't you find him? The system failed, David said. Records were incomplete. We were told he'd been placed with a family in Houston, but that placement never happened. He fell through the cracks. And now you want him back. He's our family, our blood. Where were you when he was sleeping in alleys? Jack's voice was low and dangerous. When he was eating out of dumpsters? When he was getting stabbed, trying to protect my daughter? Christine flinched. We didn't know. We would have come sooner if... But you didn't. And now that he's famous, now that he's on every TV screen in America, suddenly you show up. That's not fair, David said. Fair? Jack's voice rose. You want to talk about fair? That boy has been through hell. He finally has a home. finally has people who love him, and you want to rip him away because you share some DNA? He's our nephew. He's my son. The words hung in the air. Jack hadn't planned to say them, but as soon as they left his mouth, he knew they were true. He'd known it since the moment he held that boy's hand in the hospital, since the moment Lucas had whispered, "Promise?" and Jack had answered without hesitation. "He's my son," he repeated, quieter now. Maybe not by blood, but in every way that matters. Sandra stepped forward. "Mr. Hartwell, legally, biological family takes precedence in custody matters. If the Palmers pursue this, then let them pursue it. In court, in front of a judge, in front of the whole damn world." Jack looked at David and Christine. "You want Lucas? You'll have to fight for him. And I promise you, you've never been in a fight like this." He stepped back and closed the door. Lucas was standing in the hallway. He'd heard everything. His face was white. His hands hung at his sides, trembling. "I have an aunt and uncle?" Jack's heart clenched. "They've been looking for me?" "That's what they say. Are they going to take me away?" Jack knelt down so they were eye to eye. He took Lucas's hands, held them steady. "Nobody is taking you anywhere." "But they're family. Real family. Blood family." "Blood doesn't make family, Lucas. Love does. Sacrifice does. Being there when it matters does. Those people out there might share your DNA, but they don't know you. They didn't hold your hand in the hospital. They didn't watch you fight for your life. But if the court says, the court will hear our side too. You'll get to tell the judge what you want. And I swear to you, whatever you decide, I'll support it, even if it breaks my heart." Lucas stared at him. This man, this biker, this stranger who had become the only father he'd ever known in the space of 5 days. "What if I want to stay?" "Then you stay, no matter what it takes." "Promise?" "Promise." Lucas threw his arms around Jack's neck and held on like he was drowning. And maybe he was. The next 2 weeks were a war. Not the kind Jack was used to. Not fists and engines and open road. This war was fought in offices and conference rooms, with lawyers and social workers and stacks of paper thick enough to choke on. And it was worse. Because in this war, the thing at stake wasn't territory or pride. It was a 6-year-old boy who'd already lost everything once and couldn't survive losing it again. The Palmers were relentless. They hired the best attorneys money could buy, filed emergency motions, requested psychological evaluations, demanded supervised visitation. Their lawyer, a sharp-faced man named Whitfield, painted a picture of Jack that made Elena's blood boil. Dominic Hartwell, known as Axel, is the president of a motorcycle club with documented connections to violent incidents spanning a decade. His home is frequented by convicted felons. His lifestyle is inherently unstable and dangerous. This is not an environment for a traumatized child. Jack sat in his lawyer's office and listened to the filing being read aloud. His jaw was so tight his teeth ached. "Convicted felons," he said. "Stonewall did 18 months for a bar fight in 2009. Ghost got a DUI in college. That's their documented violence." His lawyer, a woman named Rachel Torres, who'd been representing the club for years, set the papers down. "It doesn't matter what's true, Jack. It matters what sounds scary to a judge. And motorcycle club president sounds scary. So what do? We tell a better story, and we let Lucas tell his. The media picked sides. Some outlets ran with the hero narrative. Brave biker saves orphan, gives him a home. Others went darker. Biker gang leader refuses to return kidnapped nephew to biological family. The headline made Jack put his fist through the kitchen wall. Elena found him standing there, plaster dust on his knuckles, blood dripping onto the floor. "Feel better?" she asked. "No." "Good, because punching walls is exactly what Whitfield wants you doing when the judge is watching." She took his hand, cleaned the cuts, wrapped them in gauze. "We fight smart, Jack. not angry. I'm both. Then be both, but lead with smart. Through it all, Lucas went quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of a kid lost in thought, the terrible quiet of a child bracing for impact. He went to school, did his homework, ate dinner with Jack and Elena and Sophie every night, said please and thank you and cleared his plate without being asked. He was perfect. Too perfect. The kind of perfect that a 6-year-old performs when he believes that one wrong move will get him sent away. Jack saw it, Elena saw it, even Sophie saw it, though she couldn't name what she was seeing. Lucas doesn't laugh anymore, she told Elena one night at bedtime. He used to laugh. When I showed him the dragon napkin, he laughed really hard. Now he just smiles. But it's not a real smile. It's the kind grown-ups do when they're pretending. Elena kissed her forehead. He's going through a hard time, baby. Because of those people who want to take him? Yes. Why can't they just visit, like grandma visits? Why do they have to take him? I don't know, sweetheart. It's not fair. No, it's not. Sophie pulled the covers up to her chin. Mama, if they take Lucas, can I go with him? Elena's heart shattered. She held it together long enough to say goodnight. Then she went to the bathroom, closed the door, sat on the floor, and sobbed. One night, Jack found Lucas on the front porch steps. It was past midnight. The boy was in his pajamas, bare feet on cold concrete, staring at nothing. Can't sleep? Lucas shook his head. Jack sat beside him. The night was quiet. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked once and went silent. Talk to me. I don't want to hurt anyone. What do you mean? If I stay with you, the Palmers will be hurt. If I go with them, you and Elena and Sophie will be hurt. Lucas's voice cracked. Why does someone always have to get hurt? Because life isn't fair. You know that better than anyone. I'm tired of things not being fair. Me too, kid. Me too. They sat in silence for a while. The stars were out. The air smelled like cut grass and exhaust from the highway. Then Lucas said something that stopped Jack's heart. Maybe I should just disappear again. Jack didn't move. Run away, like before. Then nobody has to fight over me. Nobody gets hurt. I just go. Back to how it was. Jack grabbed his shoulders, turned him so they were face to face. His hands were shaking, and he didn't care. Don't you ever say that again. You hear me? Never. But you are not a problem to be solved. You are not a burden. You are not something people fight over like property. You are a child, my child. And running away won't fix anything. It'll just mean the people who love you spend the rest of their lives wondering what happened to you. Lucas's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to do. You don't have to know. That's our job. The adults. We'll figure it out. What if you can't? Then we'll figure out something else. But we do it together, as a family. Lucas wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. His lip was trembling. I love you, he whispered. Is that okay to say? Jack pulled him into a hug so tight it probably hurt. It's more than okay. I love you too, kid. More than I ever thought possible. The custody hearing was set for Friday. Judge Patricia Warren presiding. Both sides would present their cases, and then a 6-year-old boy would have to speak the hardest words of his life. The courtroom was packed. Jack hadn't expected that. He thought it would be lawyers and a judge, and maybe a few people from CPS. Instead, every bench was full. Club members, neighbors, Mrs. Crawford in her Sunday best, clutching a handkerchief. Detective Holden in the back row, arms crossed, face unreadable. Even Sandra Nguyen was there, sitting behind Rachel Torres with a file folder thick enough to stop a bullet. Lucas sat between Jack and Elena. He was wearing a button-down shirt Elena had bought him just for today. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. Jack put his hand over both of them and squeezed. Whatever happens in there, he said, I'm right here. Across the aisle, David and Christine Palmer sat with Whitfield and a second attorney. Christine kept looking at Lucas. Her eyes were wet. David stared straight ahead, jaw tight. Judge Patricia Warren entered. Everyone rose. "Be seated." The room settled. Warren studied the papers in front of her. Then she looked up. Her eyes found Lucas. "Before we begin, I want to make something clear. This hearing is about what's best for a child, not what's best for the adults who want him. I will hear arguments from both sides, but ultimately, I will also hear from Lucas himself." She paused. "Is that understood?" Both legal teams nodded. "Good, Mr. Whitfield, you may begin." Whitfield stood. He was tall, thin, polished, the kind of man who made expensive look effortless. "Your Honor, this case is simple. Lucas is the biological nephew of my clients. His mother, Sarah Webb, was David Palmer's sister. When Sarah died, my clients attempted to locate Lucas, but were thwarted by a broken foster care system. They never stopped looking. They never gave up hope." He placed a stack of documents on the judge's desk. "These are records of every attempt my clients made to find Lucas. Private investigators, legal filings, donations to missing children organizations. The Palmers have spent over $200,000 trying to bring their nephew home." Elena gripped Jack's hand under the table. "Furthermore," Whitfield continued, "my clients can provide Lucas with stability, educational opportunities, and financial security that his current placement simply cannot match. Mr. Hartwell, while perhaps well-intentioned, is the president of a motorcycle club with a documented history of violent associations." Jack's jaw clenched. "The Palmers offer Lucas a normal childhood, a future. They are his blood, and blood should count for something." Whitfield sat down. Warren nodded. "Miss Torres, your response." Rachel stood. She was shorter than Whitfield by a foot, less polished. Her blazer had a coffee stain on the cuff she hadn't noticed. But when she spoke, the room went still. "Your Honor, I could talk about legal precedents. I could cite the dozens of cases where children were placed with non-biological families based on established bonds. But instead, I'd like to call some witnesses who can speak to what actually matters here." "Proceed." The first witness was Mrs. Crawford. She walked to the stand, her hands trembling slightly. "State your name and relationship to the child." "Mabel Crawford. I own the diner where Lucas lived for over a year. Lived behind my dumpster. In the alley." Her voice cracked. "He was there every day, sweeping, collecting bottles, trying to stay invisible. He was 5 years old when he showed up. 5. Did you ever try to help him?" "I left him food, let him use my bathroom. But I was scared that if I called the authorities, they'd put him back in the system that already failed him." "Did you ever see the Palmers searching for him?" Mrs. Crawford looked directly at David and Christine. "Never. Not once in over a year. I saw missing child posters all over this town. None of them had Lucas's face." Christine buried her face in her hands. "But you know who I did see?" Mrs. Crawford continued. "I saw Jack Hartwell sitting by that boy's hospital bed for 3 days straight. I saw Elena Hartwell holding him while he cried. I saw Sophie Hartwell giving him her favorite stuffed bear because she couldn't stand to see him scared." Her voice rose. "Blood doesn't make family, Your Honor. Love makes family. And I've never seen anyone love a child the way the Hartwells love Lucas." The second witness was Detective Holden. "Detective, you were involved in the investigation following Lucas's injury. Can you describe what happened?" "A 6-year-old homeless boy threw himself in front of a knife to save a 4-year-old girl from a kidnapper. His actions led to the exposure of a multi-state trafficking ring. We've rescued 19 children because of what Lucas did." "And Mr. Hartwell, what was his involvement?" "He paid for all of Lucas's medical care, stayed at the hospital for days, organized a volunteer search when the suspects fled, coordinated with law enforcement to locate the trafficking warehouse." "Is it true that Mr. Hartwell is the president of a motorcycle club?" "Yes, the Hells Angels. They're not a gang, they're a brotherhood." Holden paused. "And in 30 years of police work, I've never seen a community rally around a child the way they rallied around Lucas." Do you believe Lucas would be safe in Mr. Hartwell's care? Holden looked at Jack. I believe Lucas would be loved, protected, cherished, and I believe that's worth more than any bank account or fancy house. The third witness was Sophie. She was so small she could barely see over the witness stand. Elena had to help her climb up. Hi, she said to the judge. Hello, Sophie. Do you know why you're here? Because some people want to take Lucas away. And how do you feel about that? Sophie's face crumpled. I don't want him to go. He's my brother now. He saved me from the bad man. He got hurt because of me. I'm supposed to take care of him forever. That's what I promised. You promised? When he was in the hospital, I told him I'd never leave. I gave him my butterfly. I gave him Captain Fuzz. Tears streamed down her face. He's my brother. You can't take him. Please don't take him. The courtroom was silent. Even Whitfield had nothing to say. Even Christine Palmer was crying now. Judge Warren leaned forward gently. Thank you, Sophie. You've been very brave. I learned it from Lucas. The fourth witness was Sandra Nguyen. Ms. Nguyen, you're the CPS caseworker assigned to this case. What's your recommendation? My recommendation is that Lucas remain with the Hartwell family. Whitfield shot to his feet. Objection! Ms. Nguyen has an established relationship with the Hartwells. She's biased. I'm not biased, Sandra said calmly. I'm experienced. I've worked in child services for 15 years. I've placed hundreds of children, and I've learned to recognize when a placement is working. She looked at the judge. This one is working. Lucas has been with the Hartwells for 3 weeks. He's gained 4 pounds. He's sleeping through the night for the first time in years. He's enrolled in school. He's making friends. He's healing. She paused. The Palmers may be his blood relatives, but the Hartwells have become his home. Removing him now would cause severe psychological damage. I've seen what happens when we prioritize biology over bonding. It rarely ends well. Finally, it was Lucas's turn. He walked to the stand on legs that felt like water. The whole room was staring at him. Every eye, every breath held. Rachel had prepared him for this, but nothing could have prepared him for the weight of it. The weight of knowing that whatever he said next would determine the rest of his life. Judge Warren smiled kindly. Lucas, do you understand what's happening here? He nodded. 2 families want me. I have to choose. Not exactly. You get to tell me what you want. Then I'll make a decision based on what's best for you. But your voice matters. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. Good. Take your time. Lucas looked at the Palmers, then at Jack and Elena and Sophie, then back at the judge. Can I tell you a story first? Warren blinked. Of course. Lucas took a shaky breath. When I was little, my mom used to make paper butterflies. She'd fold them out of napkins and newspaper and anything she could find. She said butterflies were magic because they started as something ugly and turned into something beautiful. His voice cracked. She said that could happen to people too. The courtroom had gone completely still. After she died, I forgot about the butterflies. I forgot about a lot of things. I had to, because remembering hurt too much. He looked at Sophie. Then I met Sophie, and she made me a butterfly out of a napkin, just like my mom. She gave it to me like it was the most precious thing in the world. Tears spilled down his cheeks. He didn't wipe them. That butterfly saved me. It made me remember that I was a person, not just a homeless kid, not just a problem, a person. He turned to the Palmers. His voice was shaking, but he didn't stop. I know you're my aunt and uncle. I know you looked for me, and I'm grateful. I am. He swallowed. But you didn't find me when I was sleeping in alleys. You didn't find me when I was hungry and scared and alone. He looked at Jack. Mr. Hartwell found me. Mrs. Hartwell found me. Sophie found me. They didn't have to care about me. I was just some random kid who happened to be in the right place at the right time. But they cared anyway. His voice broke completely. They loved me anyway. He wiped his face with his sleeve. His whole body was trembling. I don't want to leave them. Please don't make me leave them. This is the first time I've ever felt like I belonged somewhere, like I mattered, like I was home. He took one more breath. That's all. That's what I wanted to say. Judge Warren was quiet for a long moment. The courtroom held its breath. Lucas, she said finally, thank you for your courage, for your honesty, for trusting me with your story. She shuffled her papers. Her face was composed, but her eyes were bright. In my 20 years on the bench, I've heard a lot of custody arguments, parents fighting over children like property, adults putting their needs before the needs of the kids they claim to love. She looked at the Palmers. Mr. and Mrs. Palmer, I don't doubt that you love Lucas. I don't doubt that you search for him. But love alone isn't enough. Connection matters. History matters. And the bond that's been formed between Lucas and the Hartwell family in these past 3 weeks is unlike anything I've ever seen. She looked at Jack and Elena. Mr. and Mrs. Hartwell, you opened your home to a stranger. You fought for a child who had no one else to fight for him. You loved him before you had any obligation to. She paused. It is the ruling of this court that Lucas shall remain in the custody of Jack and Elena Hartwell. The Palmers are granted visitation rights to be arranged at a later date. But primary custody and eventually adoption proceedings will move forward with the Hartwell family. Jack exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a year. Elena burst into tears. Sophie screamed and launched herself at Lucas, nearly knocking him off the witness stand. You're staying! You're staying forever! Lucas caught her, held her, and finally let himself believe it. He was home. The Palmers approached them outside the courtroom. Jack tensed, ready for a fight. But David just stood there, looking broken. Mr. Hartwell, his voice was raw. Jack, I want you to know something. Jack waited. We weren't trying to take him from you. We just wanted our nephew. We wanted what was left of my sister. His voice cracked. Sarah would have loved what you've done for him. She would have been grateful. He swallowed hard. And I'm grateful too. He extended his hand. Jack looked at it for a long moment. Then he shook it. You're still his family, Jack said. Blood matters too, just not as much as love. Christine knelt down to Lucas's level. Her mascara was ruined. Her eyes were swollen. She looked nothing like the polished woman who'd arrived with lawyers 3 weeks ago. She looked like exactly what she was, an aunt who'd lost her nephew and found him again and was trying to figure out how to hold on without squeezing too tight. I'm your Aunt Christine, she said. I know you don't know me yet, but I'd like you to someday, when you're ready. Lucas studied her face. You look like my mom. Christine's eyes filled with fresh tears. She was my sister-in-law. I loved her very much. Can you tell me about her sometime? I don't remember much. I'd like that. I'd like that very much. She hugged him, gently. Not the hug of someone claiming possession, the hug of someone saying, hello. 3 months later, the adoption was finalized. Lucas Hartwell. He said the name out loud in his room, testing how it felt on his tongue. Lucas Hartwell. Lucas Hartwell. Lucas Hartwell. Stop saying your own name, weirdo. Sophie appeared in his doorway, grinning. It's my name now. I can say it as much as I want. Fine, but dinner's ready. Mom made tacos. Mom. He still couldn't believe he got to call her that. At the dinner table, Jack raised his glass. To our family, all 4 of us. To family, Elena echoed. To tacos, Sophie shouted. Everyone laughed. Lucas looked around the table at these people who had chosen him, who had fought for him, who had loved him when he'd given them no reason to. Can I say something? He asked. Of course, mijo. He'd never get used to that word. It made his chest warm every time. I used to think invisible was the safest thing to be, that if nobody saw me, nobody could hurt me. He paused. But then I met Sophie, and she saw me. She saw me when nobody else did, and that scared me at first, but it also saved me. He looked at Jack. You saw me too. All of you. You looked at some dirty homeless kid and you saw someone worth loving. I don't know why. I don't know what I did to deserve this. You saved our daughter, Elena said softly. No, Lucas shook his head. You saved me. You gave me a family, a home, a name, a future. I didn't even know I was allowed to have those things. He wiped his eyes. So thank you. Thank you for not looking away. Thank you for making me visible. Jack reached across the table and took his hand. You were never invisible, Lucas. Not to us. Not to anyone who has eyes to see what really matters. What's that? Courage, kindness, heart. Jack squeezed his hand. You've got all three, kid. You always did. You just needed someone to remind you. 10 years changed a lot of things in Millbrook. The diner got a new roof. The highway got a new exit. The elementary school got a new wing funded by anonymous donations that everyone knew came from the Hells Angels, but nobody talked about. 10 years changed Lucas Hartwell, too. He was 16 now, tall, strong, brown hair that fell across his forehead the way his mother's used to, or so Aunt Christine told him. The scar on his left forearm had faded to a thin white line, barely visible unless you knew where to look. Most people didn't notice it. Lucas always did. He touched it sometimes without thinking, the way a man might touch a medal he earned in a war he never talks about. He wore a leather vest now, prospect patch on the back. Not a full member. That would come at 18, when he could vote and ride with the charter on official business. But the patch was there, and every angel who saw it knew what it meant, knew the story behind it, knew that the kid wearing it had earned his place, not with miles on the road, but with blood on the pavement of a parking lot a decade ago. Jack had offered the vest on Lucas's 15th birthday. No ceremony, no speeches, just the two of them in the garage, Jack holding the leather out like it was something sacred. You don't have to wear it, Jack had said. This isn't about me or the club. This is about you. If you want it, it's yours. If you don't, that's fine too. No pressure, no expectations. Lucas had taken it, held it, run his fingers over the stitching. Then he'd put it on and looked at Jack and said, "It fits." Jack had smiled. "Yeah, it does." That was a year ago. Since then, Lucas had worn the vest every single day, to school, to the diner, to the youth center he volunteered at on weekends. Sophie said it made him look like a tough guy. Elena said it made him look like his father. Jack said nothing. He just watched his son walk through the world with his shoulders back and his head up, and thought about a 6-year-old boy counting bottle caps behind a dumpster. That boy was gone, but he wasn't forgotten. Lucas made sure of that. It was October, a Saturday. The air had that bite to it that meant winter was coming, whether you were ready or not. Lucas stood at the back entrance of Crawford's Corner Diner, his hands in his pockets, looking at the spot where he used to sleep. They'd paved over it 3 years ago, put in a small garden with a bench and a plaque that read, "Every child deserves to be seen." Mrs. Crawford's idea. She'd paid for it herself, refused to let Jack contribute a dime. "This is mine," she'd said. "I watched that boy sleep on my concrete for a year and did nothing but leave sandwiches. This is the least I owe him." Lucas visited the bench sometimes, not out of sadness, out of remembering, because forgetting where you came from was the fastest way to lose where you were going. "You ready for this?" Sophie appeared beside him, 14 now, fierce, beautiful, golden blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, her father's jaw, her mother's eyes, a voice that could fill a room or break a heart, depending on what she needed it to do. She was wearing a leather jacket, not a vest, not yet, she was too young for that, but she'd sewn a small angel wing patch onto the sleeve herself. Jack had pretended not to notice. Elena had pretended to disapprove. Nobody was fooled. "Ready as I'll ever be," Lucas said. "You say that every time. Every time it's true." They walked into the alley together. The back alley behind the diner, where the dumpsters were, where the recycling bins lined up against the wall, where the air smelled like grease and cardboard and something else. Something that Lucas recognized in his bones. Desperation. The smell of a person with nowhere else to go. A boy was there. 7 years old, maybe 8, dirty, skinny, jeans torn at both knees, a hoodie 3 sizes too big, the sleeves hanging past his fingertips. His hair was matted, his shoes had holes, and his eyes, God, his eyes, they were too old for his face, too hard, too empty. The eyes of a child who had stopped expecting anything from the world a long time ago. He was counting bottle caps. Lucas felt his heart crack open, right down the middle, right along the old fault line that had never fully healed and never would. He knew those eyes. He'd worn them once. "Stay here," he told Sophie. "Like hell. Soph, I'm coming with you. That's not a discussion." He looked at her. She looked back. Same stubbornness, same fire, same absolute refusal to stand by while someone suffered alone. "Fine," he said, "but let me talk first." They walked over slowly, not fast, not loud. Lucas had learned that speed spooked kids like this, that loudness meant danger, that the wrong approach could send a child running and you'd never see them again. He stopped 10 feet away, knelt down, made himself small. "Hey," the boy's head snapped up. Fear flickered across his face, raw and immediate. Then defiance slammed down over it like a steel door. Lucas recognized that too. The armor, the mask, the thing you wore when you couldn't afford to be vulnerable. "I'm not doing anything wrong," the boy said. His voice was tight, hard, practiced. "I'll leave." "You don't have to leave." "I said I'll go. I'm going." He started shoving bottle caps into his pockets, fast, frantic, like he'd done this before, like he'd been chased away before, like the world had taught him that the only response to someone approaching was to run. "Hey," Lucas held up his hands, palms out, no threat. "I'm not here to chase you off. Nobody's going to make you leave." The boy stopped, looked at Lucas, looked at the leather vest. Something shifted in his eyes, not trust, not yet, but the tiniest crack in the armor. "What do you want?" "I want to give you something." Lucas reached into his pocket and pulled out a paper butterfly. It was old, faded. The napkin had gone soft with age, the creases worn almost through. One wing was held together with tape that had yellowed over the years. It shouldn't have survived a week, let alone a decade, but Lucas had kept it, carried it, guarded it like the most precious thing he owned, because it was. He held it out. The boy stared at it. "What is that?" "A butterfly." "I can see that. Why are you giving it to me?" "Because someone gave it to me once, when I had nothing, when I was exactly where you are right now." Lucas's voice was steady, but his hand was shaking. Sophie noticed. She always noticed. "It changed my life. Maybe it can change yours." The boy's eyes narrowed. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity." "Then what is it?" "Hope." The word hung in the air between them. The boy's jaw worked. His fists clenched. He was fighting something. Fighting the instinct to run. Fighting the instinct to reject. Fighting the terrible, dangerous temptation to believe. Lucas knelt lower, eye to eye, close enough to see the dirt on the boy's face and the old bruise on his cheekbone, and the way his hands shook, even when he was trying to hold them still. "I was you once," Lucas said. "I slept right here, behind that dumpster. I ate scraps out of trash cans. I counted bottle caps because it was the only thing that made me feel like I existed." The boy's defiance wavered, just barely, just enough. "What happened?" "Someone saw me. Someone decided I was worth fighting for." Lucas pressed the butterfly into the boy's palm, gently, like it might dissolve, like the boy might dissolve. "There's a place you can go, a shelter downtown. It's called New Horizons." A shelter. The boy said it like a dirty word. I've been to shelters. They call CPS. CPS calls foster care. Foster care calls hell. Not this one. How do you know? Because I helped build it. Because I run the youth outreach program. Because I made a promise that no kid in this town would ever have to be invisible again. The boy looked at the butterfly in his hand, turned it over, ran his finger along the taped wing. You keep saying invisible. Yeah. Is that what you think I am? I think that's what you think you are, and I think you're wrong. Something changed in the boy's face. The armor didn't come down. It would take more than one conversation for that, but a crack appeared, a real one, the kind that lets light in whether you want it to or not. What's your name? The boy asked. Lucas Hartwell. I'm Tyler. Nice to meet you, Tyler. Lucas stood and offered his hand. You hungry? Tyler looked at the hand. Starving. Come on. Mrs. Crawford still makes the best sandwiches in Millbrook. Tyler hesitated. His eyes went to Lucas's hand, then to Sophie, standing a few feet back with tears streaming down her face that she was pretending weren't there. Then to the butterfly in his own hand. Then slowly, like a boy stepping off a cliff and hoping someone would catch him, he took Lucas's hand. Mrs. Crawford saw them coming through the back door, and her hand went to her mouth. She didn't say a word. She just went to the kitchen and started making sandwiches. 3 of them. Extra meat, extra cheese. Because she'd done this before. Because she remembered. Because some things you never forget no matter how many years go by. Tyler ate like he hadn't seen food in days, because he probably hadn't. Lucas sat across from him and watched and said nothing. Sophie sat beside Lucas, her hand on his arm, holding on. When Tyler finished, he looked up, mustard on his chin, fear still in his eyes. But something else too, something fragile and new and terrified of its own existence. You really slept behind that dumpster? He asked. For over a year. And now you live in a house? With my family, my dad, my mom, my sister. Lucas glanced at Sophie. She's the one who saved me, actually, not the other way around. I saved you first, Sophie said, by giving you that butterfly. And I saved you first by not letting go. So we saved each other. Yeah, Lucas smiled. That's how family works. Tyler looked at them, at the way they talked to each other, at the way Sophie's hand rested on Lucas's arm like it belonged there, at the easy, unthinking closeness of 2 people who had walked through fire together and come out holding hands. I don't have a family, Tyler said. You could, Lucas said. People always say that. I'm not people. I'm the kid who used to sleep where you're sleeping. And I'm telling you, it gets better, but only if you let someone help. Tyler was quiet for a long time. Then he folded the paper butterfly carefully, so carefully, and slid it into the pocket of his oversized hoodie. Okay, he said. I'll try. That night, after Tyler was settled at New Horizons, after the intake paperwork was done, and the counselors had taken over, and Lucas had made sure, personally, obsessively sure, that the boy had a clean bed and a warm meal and someone watching over him, Lucas went home. He sat on the front porch, the same porch where he'd told Jack he wanted to disappear, the same porch where Jack had grabbed his shoulders and told him he was not a burden, the same porch where, a decade ago, a broken man and a broken boy had said, I love you, for the first time, and meant it more than either of them could express. Sophie came out and sat beside him. She put her head on his shoulder. He put his arm around her. They fit together the way they always had, 2 pieces of a puzzle that the world had tried to scatter but couldn't. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just thinking. About what? About how one moment can change everything. How one person can change everything. He looked at her. You changed everything, Sophie. That butterfly you gave me, that moment you saw me, it saved my life. You saved mine first. I guess we're even then. She laughed, soft, warm. The laugh of a girl who'd grown up knowing she was loved and had spent her whole life trying to make sure other people knew it too. "We're not even," she said. "We're family. That's different." "Different how?" "Family doesn't keep score. Family just loves, no matter what." Lucas pulled her closer. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from my big brother." They sat there together. Two kids who had found each other in the darkest moment of their lives. Two kids who had become family. Two kids who had proven that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being terrified and choosing love anyway. The next morning, 195 motorcycles rode through Millbrook. It was an annual tradition now. Every October, on the anniversary of the night Lucas had bled for a biker's daughter, the Hells Angels gathered. They came from Houston and Dallas and Austin, from Oklahoma and Louisiana and New Mexico. They came on Harleys and Indians and custom choppers that gleamed in the morning sun. They came with their colors on their backs and their fists over their hearts, and they rode through the streets of a small Texas town to remember a night 10 years ago when a 6-year-old boy had taught them all what courage looked like. Lucas rode at the front, beside his father. Jack was 53 now, more gray in his hair, more lines around his eyes. But his hands were steady on the handlebars, and his back was straight. And when he looked at his son riding beside him, his face held an expression that no word in any language could adequately capture. Pride didn't cover it. Love didn't cover it. Gratitude didn't cover it. It was all of those things and something more. Something that existed only between a father and a son who had chosen each other when the world had given them every reason not to. Elena watched from the sidewalk with Christine Palmer beside her. They'd become friends over the years, these two women. Unlikely friends. Bonded not by blood, but by shared love for a boy who had somehow drawn them all into the same orbit. "He looks like Sarah," Christine said quietly, watching Lucas ride past. "Same jaw. Same way of holding his head." "He's got Jack's stubbornness, though," Elena said. "God help us all." They laughed. And then they cried. And then they laughed again. Because that's what family does. Sophie stood at the corner of Main Street, her phone out, recording. She'd post it later. She always did. Every year the video went viral. Every year people commented from all over the world. Every year someone new heard the story and shared it and tagged someone else, and the circle grew wider. She didn't do it for the views. She did it because Lucas had taught her something that most people never learned. That the smallest act of courage could ripple outward forever. That one child refusing to let go could save not just one life, but hundreds. That visibility, the simple, radical act of seeing another person, was the most powerful force in the world. Stonewall rode behind Lucas. 65 now. Retired from the road mostly. Bad knees. Worse back. But every October he climbed on his bike and rode because Danny's pin was still on Lucas's vest, and that meant his son was still riding too. Still part of something. Still remembered. Mrs. Crawford stood in front of her diner with a tray of sandwiches. Free for anyone who wanted one. She did this every year too. Her small act of penance. Her way of saying, "I should have done more, but I'm doing it now." Holden watched from his patrol car, retired now, consulting. But he always worked this day, always made sure the route was clear, always saluted when Lucas rode past. Because 30 years of police work had taught him a lot of things, but nothing had taught him more than a 6-year-old boy who'd noticed what everyone else had missed. The convoy circled through town and ended at Crawford's Corner Diner. The same parking lot, the same cracked pavement, now covered by a garden and a bench and a plaque. Lucas killed his engine, climbed off, stood there for a moment, looking at the spot where he'd bled, where he'd held on, where everything had changed. Jack came up beside him, put his hand on his son's shoulder. "You good?" "Yeah." Lucas touched the scar on his arm. "I'm good." "Big day tomorrow." "Don't remind me." Tomorrow was Monday, Lucas's first day volunteering at New Horizons full-time. He designed the youth outreach program himself, written the proposal, pitched it to the city council, secured funding from a coalition of local businesses, and, anonymously, always anonymously, the Hells Angels. The program was simple. Find the invisible kids, the ones sleeping in alleys and behind dumpsters and under bridges, the ones the system had failed, the ones nobody was looking for. Find them, see them, feed them, help them, and never, ever look away. You know what Danny would have said? Stonewall appeared beside them. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. What? He would have said, "Cool vest, dude." Stonewall laughed, wiped his eyes. He was 8. Everything was either cool or lame. No in between. Lucas touched the pin on his vest, the winged skull with the halo. He'd worn it every day for 10 years, never took it off, never lost it, never forgot what it meant. I think about him sometimes, Lucas said. Danny, I think about how he didn't get the chance to grow up. And I did. And I wonder why. Don't wonder why, Stonewall said. Just make it count. I'm trying. Kid, you're not trying, you're doing. There's a difference. Stonewall put his massive hand on Lucas's shoulder. Danny would have been proud to know you. Hell, he does know you. Wherever he is, he knows. That night, the Hartwells had dinner together. All 4 of them. Tacos because it was always tacos on this night. Jack raised his glass. Elena raised hers. Sophie raised a fistful of tortilla chips because she'd already started eating. To 10 years, Jack said. To family, Elena said. To tacos, Sophie shouted. Lucas laughed, really laughed. The kind of laugh that started in his belly and worked its way up and came out loud and free and unafraid. To butterflies, he said. They clinked glasses. They ate. They talked about nothing important and everything that mattered. And Lucas looked around the table at his father, his mother, his sister, and thought about Tyler. About the look on the boy's face when he'd taken the butterfly. About the crack in the armor. About the terrifying, beautiful, impossible leap of faith it took to trust someone when the world had given you every reason not to. He'd been that boy once, counting bottle caps, sleeping on concrete, believing that invisible was the safest thing to be. And then a 4-year-old girl with golden curls and pink sneakers had walked up to him and said, "It's beautiful," and handed him a paper butterfly and changed the entire course of his life. After dinner, Lucas went to his room. He opened the top drawer of his dresser and pulled out a small tin box, rusty, dented. A picture of Christmas cookies on the lid, faded and scratched. 39 bottle caps. He'd kept them, all of them, every single one, not because they were worth anything, but because they were proof. Proof that he'd existed. Proof that even in the darkest, most invisible days of his life, he'd still been here, still counting, still holding on. He closed the box, put it back, and went to bed. In his pocket, pressed against his heart, was a paper butterfly, faded, worn, held together by tape and prayer and 10 years of love. A symbol of transformation, a reminder of hope, a promise that no child would ever have to be invisible again. Because Lucas Hartwell had been invisible once. A boy with no name, no home, no family, no future. A boy who slept behind dumpsters and counted bottle caps and held a paper butterfly in his fist like a prayer every single night. And he had risen. Not alone, never alone, with 195 angels at his back. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you don't miss more stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And remember, every child deserves to be seen. Every child deserves to be loved. Be the person who doesn't look away. Comment, "I see you," to honor every invisible child still waiting to be found.